Welcome to our daily book summary. The book I'll be sharing with you today is The Path of Least Resistance. We often hear people say, "Why is it that I understand so many principles, yet I still can't live a good life?" In a way, this book answers that question. In it, the author analyzes the reasons for the recurring failures in our lives, and then proposes that we find our own path of least resistance to creatively live out our lives. It might sound a bit abstract, but bear with me as I explain. This book, The Path of Least Resistance, was first published in 1989. For nearly 30 years, it has been a globally best-selling classic. The author is Robert Fritz. Interestingly, he started as a musician. During the process of composing music, he developed a strong interest in creativity and pioneered a theory on the structural dynamics of creation. He later focused on studying the creative process as a career and developed a course called Technologies for Creating, or TFC, specifically to help people develop their creativity. Many people, including artists, scientists, scholars, and executives from major corporations, were drawn to his class. The author of The Fifth Discipline, the renowned management guru Peter Senge, was also deeply inspired by him. In 1978, Peter Senge took Robert Fritz's creativity course, and they later co-founded a famous innovation consulting firm. Senge continued to research and write books centered on innovation and creativity, making it his life's work. The author poses a universal question in the book. Why do your attempts to change your life always fail? Think about it. When was the last time you wanted to completely change yourself and your life? One day you wake up, suddenly disgusted with your aimless state, and you decide to make a change. You buy a ton of books, join various learning communities, and write down an ambitious study plan. 3 days later, the passion fades and life returns to normal. You want to lose weight, so you decide to start controlling your diet and exercising more. You skip dinner for 3 consecutive nights. On the 4th day, you can't hold out any longer and end up binge eating. With every attempt, you try harder, but each time you are inexplicably pulled back to where you started. You might have different excuses for stopping or giving up. I've been so tired lately. I'll wait until work is less stressful. Or, I haven't been feeling well. I'll try again next time when I'm better. You've tried to learn English, paint, lose weight, and work out, but most of the time, you couldn't stick with it. These actions to change essentially became a form of self-comfort. Once the comforting effect is achieved, you tend to slump onto the sofa like a couch potato. It's as if our lives are missing a certain driving force that supports our continuous progress and change. So where does the problem lie? This book offers a groundbreaking perspective. Our recurring failures in life are mainly because we adopt a problem-solving model. Specifically, every time you try to lose weight or learn English, you follow a process of identifying a problem, finding its cause, and solving it. However, this problem-solving approach, especially when dealing with willpower in real life, is bound to lead to failure. When we try to solve the problem, we take action to prevent an undesirable outcome. Generally, the more severe the problem, the more drastic the action we take. But once the action takes effect and the problem is alleviated, we stop taking action and slack off. As a result, the problems all come back. This process is like a swinging pendulum going back and forth. So, you often exert all your effort without seeing any significant results or progress. Almost all attempts at change go through 3 stages. First, the initial stage. Second, the process of your continuous effort. And third, after you've let yourself go to a certain extent. In these 3 stages, you will be subject to different forces and will react differently. Let's take weight loss as an example again. At the beginning, you decide to eat less and exercise more, right? The desire for a fit body creates a strong pulling force that prompts you to take action. But you must know there's also an opposing force, a comforting force. The force of eating whatever you want and staying comfortable instead of exercising. This force is equal in magnitude and opposite in direction to the first one. You struggle back and forth between these 2 forces. Now, imagine you are standing between 2 walls. One wall is the fit body you desire, and the other is eating whatever you want, but being unable to stay slim. Each wall has a rubber band attached to you, creating 2 forces of equal magnitude. You stand in the middle. As you move closer to the desire wall, the rubber band from the comfort wall behind you pulls tighter. Every step forward requires a great deal of effort. the slightest lapse in attention, and you'll be snapped back to the outcome you don't want. This is the second stage, where you're making an effort. In the third stage, you give up and start to let yourself go. After letting go to a certain extent, you feel great relief and comfort, but soon, the force of desire begins to grow stronger again. This is why most people, after a period of indulgence and giving up, will rally and start trying again, entering the next cycle. It can be said that most of our attempts to change ourselves are constantly cycling and repeating in this process. The author uses the term oscillation. I'm sure you've had this experience, right? This trap doesn't just apply when we try to solve our own problems. Many things fall into it. For example, the international relief efforts for the Ethiopian famine. Due to war and disasters, the entire country of Ethiopia was plunged into a severe famine, with a large number of people starving to death. This was a very serious problem that drew global attention. The media reported on it extensively. Celebrities held fundraising concerts, and people in wealthy regions generously donated. A large amount of aid quickly poured into Ethiopia. The victims received supplies, but once the situation was temporarily alleviated, people no longer saw it as a problem. The media stopped reporting, and people's attention shifted. However, the root causes of the famine were never resolved. The problem was left behind, and even today, children in Ethiopia continue to die from famine. Therefore, the author, Robert Fritz, believes that this problem-solving approach is unworkable. In today's workplace, problem-solving ability is almost synonymous with a person's professional competence. Yet, the author states in his book, "Our company absolutely does not hire people who are good at solving problems." His reasoning is that a person who loves to solve problems, who has long thought in a problem-solving mode, often lacks creativity. When we are keen on solving problems, we are still conforming to our circumstances, constantly doing things to prevent what we don't want from happening. We are so used to solving problems that this mindset rarely allows us to think seriously and thoroughly about what it is we truly want. The author believes there is only one way to avoid this kind of failure, to break out of this model. Stop thinking with a problem-solving or changing mindset. Instead, he proposes a new model called the creative model. You must learn to use this model to achieve your goals. Why is it that problem-solving and changing don't lead to success? Because the author discovered that all objects tend to travel along the path of least resistance, and energy is also continuously transmitted along this path. If you want to achieve your goal through change, that is not the path of least resistance. You will encounter immense resistance, as mentioned before, and your goal will never be achieved. Instead, you need to creatively find your path to achieving your goals. How do we understand the path of least resistance? The author lives in Boston, and friends who visit him often ask a question: how were the roads in Boston planned? If you've been to Boston, you'll find that the streets there follow no particular rules. There are many winding roads, each with a different name. In fact, Boston's urban planning really has no rules. The roads here are simply widened versions of cow paths from centuries ago. A cow path, like a road, is a path trodden by cows. So how did these cow paths come to be? Cows usually walk following the contours of the land, finding the easiest route. If there's a mountain ahead, a cow will never force its way across it, but will choose the easiest path, even if it means going around to the other side of the mountain. In other words, the cow's walking pattern is determined by the structure of the terrain. Over time, the cow paths naturally formed, and subsequent cows would naturally follow them. Boston's urban planning naturally followed the structure of the terrain. For both Boston's cows and the later city planners, this was a path of least resistance. In fact, we all live our lives following such paths of least resistance. For example, when we walk, we all like to take shortcuts, which are paths of least resistance. If we now need to get from the 70th floor of one skyscraper to the 60th floor of the one next to it, our only path of movement is to follow the elevators, stairs, and doors. The very design structure of the building determines our path of movement. The author believes the same principle applies to trying to solve problems and achieve goals by changing ourselves. We often think that our psychological state affects the outcome of things. So, we constantly adjust our mental state and try to change the outcome by improving our willpower and execution. But the author argues that what determines success or failure is actually that oscillating structure. In other words, You must transcend and break out of that pattern to avoid failure. To break out of that box, we need a new structure, one that facilitates the use of your creativity. The creative structure, compared to the previously mentioned pull-counter-pull model, is a higher-level structural tension. It consists of two major elements. First, a clear vision of the achievement you want to create. Second, a clear understanding of your current reality. These two elements form a brand new structural tension. The vision provides you with a powerful pull, driving you to take action. The role of your current reality is also to drive you. The gap between the vision and your current reality pushes you constantly forward to create the results you want. The clearer your inner vision, the more likely you are to create the results you want. If you compare them, you'll find a key difference between problem-solving, changing, and creating. When you solve problems or try to change, your actions are aimed at preventing an undesirable outcome, and your focus is on what you don't want. But when you create, you must focus on the results you truly want. All your actions are geared towards making your desired outcome happen. At this point, you may no longer feel the pull from that comfort wall. What would happen if we used a creative approach to alleviate poverty? In a poverty relief initiative that took place in Uganda, people fully adopted a creative approach and achieved truly astounding results. The staff continuously trained the local villagers in creativity, fully helping them to imagine and confirm what their desired life and desired homeland truly looked like. The local people also began to take active steps, gradually turning their imagined houses, farms, villages, and hospitals into reality. In the creative process, you no longer emphasize how bad the environment is or how urgent the situation is. Instead, you start from your own heart and mind, allowing the beautiful results you desire to continuously emerge. True creation has nothing to do with external circumstances. It is simply the pictures and sounds within our hearts, and these pictures and sounds need to be constantly reinforced and ultimately expressed. Now, imagine that within this new structural tension, you have a clear vision, for example, to write a novel. What is your current reality? How many novels have you read? What is your current writing level? At this point, you begin to experience the huge gap between your ideal and reality. Generally, creators have a higher tolerance for this gap than most people. They even use it as their most powerful driving force. So you need to adopt the role of a creator and increase your ability to tolerate this gap. And to activate your creative structure, you only need to do one thing: seriously conceive what results you want to create, then carefully observe your current reality and keep your focus on the outcome. You might say, "Oh, I don't dare to set goals because I'm afraid I won't be able to achieve them. Everything is hard, so I'd better keep my expectations low." At this point, you need to re-examine your goals. What kind of goal is clear, specific, and achievable? A clear and specific goal will pull you forward. Moreover, a large number of our goals fail because we rarely take the time to seriously observe our current reality. Having a dream without regard for reality will only lead to failure. For example, the reality is that you can barely write a 1,000-word article and can only manage one per week. If you now set a goal to write a book in a month, is that achievable? Absolutely not. As another example, let's look at what the cows in Boston did. For a cow at the foot of a mountain, reaching the summit is its vision. The current reality is that there is no path. Following a problem-solving approach might involve moving rocks out of the way to go straight to the top. But the cow creatively bypasses the rocks, choosing to ascend spirally around the mountain to reach the summit. If it had used a problem-solving approach, it's very likely the cow would not have achieved its vision of reaching the top. Only by accurately grasping the current reality and the vision, and creatively shaping structural tension, can you find your own path of least resistance, which is the path of creation, to realize your vision. The creative process generally goes through 3 distinct stages: germination, assimilation, and completion. The first stage is called germination. In the germination stage, your most important task is to make a primary choice and then focus all your resources on that choice. Making choices also requires practice. You must go through pain and let go of other things. One thing to remember is this: only one primary choice can truly get you started on the creation that follows. So, choose what you truly want, whatever it is. When you make that decisive choice, you'll find that all the things that previously troubled you begin to fade away. Furthermore, the key to making a choice is to base it on your true desires, not on what you want to avoid. For example, you choose to be a healthy person, not a person who doesn't get sick. Everyone gets sick. This is unavoidable. But health is a more long-term, stable state. You can choose to live a meaningful life, rather than choosing to avoid a mediocre life of idleness. Now ask your heart, what is it that you want to have? Once you have made a choice, you will continuously make a series of smaller choices to maintain that primary choice. For example, should I watch TV or write something? Through each small choice, you reinforce and solidify the primary choice in your heart. The germination stage will bring you a lot of stimulation, positive stimulation. It's like the early days of a startup. Though everything is chaotic, it's full of possibilities and surging with passion. Director Alfred Hitchcock felt that the most joyful part was the conceptual stage of a film. Months before he began creating with cinematography, acting, sets, costumes, and other film elements, driven by the unique energy of the germination stage, he would storyboard the entire movie, drawing it frame by frame on yellow legal pads. He said, "The process of conception, writing the screenplay, and preparation is much more stimulating than the actual shooting. Next, you will enter the assimilation stage. Moving from initial uncertainty and some anxiety to the assimilation stage, you will absorb a vast amount of knowledge and discover opportunities. You will find that realizing your vision is not difficult at all. You begin to learn extensively, assimilating a great deal of knowledge, and you even feel that you are capable of anything. When you write, more and more pleasant surprises flow from your pen. When you work, you feel you have more and more energy and motivation to complete tasks. This is the most wonderful period of the creative journey, indicating that you are experiencing rapid growth. Finally, you reach the completion stage. Many people retreat at the final step of the completion stage, getting stuck and defeated. For example, many doctoral students procrastinate for years and can't graduate simply because that dissertation is never finished. An engineer only needs to make a few more decisions to launch a project, but gets stuck by countless details, lacking the courage to break through. Many of us have had the experience of being just one step away from the finish line, yet feeling a bit fearful of the result, watching helplessly as all our efforts go to waste. When we finally finish, sometimes we feel that what we've written is absolute trash, and other times we are reluctant to let go of the work. In reality, all you need to do is accept it. Calmly accept that this is the work I can create right now. This is the job I can complete. This is the normal mindset. Tell yourself that it's time to finish. You just need to complete it, and then begin the next creative journey. For instance, many film directors can't bear to watch their own movies. Some feel there are always regrets and are never satisfied. Others have watched them so many times they no longer feel anything. But film producer Hal B. Wallace was different. He approached his own work with the mentality of an audience member. He said that before making a film, he would fully grasp all the cinematic elements in every step to gradually realize the film's vision. When he enjoyed the finished film, he would imagine it was made by someone else. Thinking this way, the witty lines in the movie could still make him laugh as if he had never seen it before. And he would still be deeply moved while watching, as if it were the first time. Wallace concluded that one must separate one's identity as an artist from that of an audience member. This is not easy, but it is very helpful. These 3 stages of the creative journey will each generate different kinds of energy, and each kind of energy can help you continue to move to the next stage. The energy of the germination stage helps you move toward the assimilation stage. The energy of the assimilation stage pushes you toward the completion stage, and the energy of the completion stage can help you enter a new creative process, a new germination stage. The author himself came from a musical background. He released 2 music albums in 1 year. The first album, called Rainy Night on the Highways, took him 5 months to compose and produce. As the first album was nearing completion, he began planning the second one, called Signs in the Airs, which amazingly took only 1 week to finish. The creative process of the first album generated a lot of momentum that carried over into the next one. Therefore, the nature of creative energy is not to diminish but to increase, growing exponentially. Once you complete something, it will keep you moving forward. Having said all this, let's return to reality. The actual creative process is much more complex, much more difficult, and the journey is much longer. Whether you want to write a novel, start a business, or take on a project, from the germination stage to the assimilation stage, and finally to the completion stage, you will go through countless hardships. In this process, the two most common obstacles are the time lag and an aversion to the current reality. The first is the time lag. When you first start taking action, you will always experience a period of time lag before you see the results of the change. For example, it takes time to go from training employees to improving product quality. There is also a time lag from quality improvement to market feedback and increased sales. Another type of time lag is when you stagnate or even seem to be regressing in the creative process. This could also be a form of time lag. Moreover, we often imagine the distance between ourselves and a certain achievement to be closer than it actually is, being a bit overly optimistic. Generally, after you take creative action, the results will not appear immediately. Sometimes changes have already occurred, but we are unaware of them. When creating, you may encounter time lag several times before you fully achieve what you desire, but don't give up. This could very well be a crucial moment that catalyzes your creativity. The second obstacle is an aversion to the current reality. Because the current reality does not match our expectations, it is difficult to perceive it objectively. You must train yourself in the ability to see the current reality objectively. Sometimes, we spend too much time thinking about why the situation has become this way, but rarely think about what the situation is right now. For example, a middle-aged couple is driving to the Grand Canyon. In the morning at their motel, someone told them it was a 4-hour drive to the Grand Canyon. But after driving for 4 hours, they couldn't even see a hint of it. They were lost. They finally found a rest stop where they asked for directions and were told it was another 1.5-hour drive. But during that 1.5-hour drive from the rest stop to the Grand Canyon, they spent the whole time discussing why they got lost and where they took a wrong turn. In reality, the more important issue they should have been focusing on was where they were now, and how to re-navigate and replan the route to the Grand Canyon from their current location, rather than dwelling on why they got lost before. The author provides a 4-step key technique to help us face the current reality. It is more important in the entrepreneurial and creative process to see the current situation clearly in a timely manner and re-evaluate the distance between the current reality and the vision. You must tell yourself the truth as it is, without distortion, modification, or making excuses. Here's how. First step. Describe your current situation. Report the situation to yourself as it is, avoiding any analysis or commentary. Second step. Describe where you want to go. State the outcome you want to create. For example, I want to go to the Grand Canyon. I want to become a writer. You just need to say it out loud. At this point, you should say what you truly want, not what you think is possible. Third step. Formally choose your desired outcome again. Say in your mind, I choose to go to the Grand Canyon. I choose to become a writer. Continuously reaffirm in your mind that you have made this choice. Fourth step. Keep going. Once you have observed where you are and where you want to go and have formally chosen the outcome you want to create, you should be focused and no longer be stuck in situations you dislike. When you feel stuck, you can look at the scenery, read a book, or shift your attention. A breakthrough often follows. The mathematician Henri Poincaré was once stuck on a problem. He took a short nap and woke up with the answer. A chemist made a new discovery in the lab but couldn't find a formula to explain it. He decided to take a bus ride around the city. The moment he stepped onto the bus, the answer appeared. These phenomena are not just flashes of inspiration. There is a scientific basis for them. The brain continues to work during a nap or relaxation, and rest and relaxation can boost the brain's creativity. That's all for how to find the path of least resistance to success through creating rather than changing. Let's review. Nature's operating principle is that energy always flows along the path of least resistance. Therefore, if you want to achieve your goals, you need to learn how to walk your path of least resistance to innovation, moving in the direction you truly want to go. In this process, you will experience different stages, and at each stage, you need to look at problems creatively. The pendulum on the wall swings back and forth, but a rocket is meant to reach its final destination. I wish for everyone to find their own path to success.